Yeah, I have a little trouble here at this tape. But after I called old Dempsey a red-headed son of a bitch, you soon find out you're not supposed to do that once you're in the Army. You don't talk that way to a first sergeant, or as we called him, the first shirts, you know. But I had to kind of get his mind off of his problems. And he was emotionally upset with those men getting killed. A lot of pain. And I loaded him on the back of that old weasel. Oh, in a stretcher, and I knew it wasn't going to be no damn easy run. It's going to be a run for your life. And he was out of it. He never came back until, I believe it was after the bulge. But shortly after, I think about the 15th of, I think it's about the 15th or 16th of December is when the bulge started, and we pulled out of Lindern and turned it over to the 102nd Division at about, the 18th or 19th, somewhere along in there, the 20th maybe. I don't think we got in there till about the 5th. It was a very hard town to take. They took it with a battalion. Lindern was what I'm talking about. 1,000 men attacked Lindern, and when they got it, they had 135 men left. And I talked to the commander that was defending that. He was an SS colonel. And I told him, I said, you could have whipped us with a stick. He said, I knew you was hurt bad. I only had 26 men left out of a division. So he was hurt real bad. But anyway, they pulled us back about the 20th. And, oh my, what a relief to be out of direct fire, Still, we was being shelled, bombed, and strafed. But they told us that they was going to give us warm food, and I think probably they're going to let us have some clothes, some warm clothes maybe, new clothes, I guess that's what it was, or socks. And I told my buddy, I said, by God, we'll have to pay for this in blood, but these people don't feed you for the hell of it. They want some action. And it was long. The first night we was back there, I had run myself down an old chair that had a cane bottom in it. They make the best privies. And I just took this chair out in the yard, this German home. Of course, there's nobody there but us soldiers. I cut the bottom out of the chair, and I dropped my pants, and I sat down on this old chair, and boy, I'm telling you, that was just really great. And I'm sitting there enjoying all of this, and old Bed Check Charlie is running all around through the neighborhood, and I can hear him. He'll rev his engine up, and then he'll cut the engine, and you can hear him just a-coasting, and then all at once he'll climb on the throttle, and directly I heard, real close to us there, I heard just a faint hum, and my God, he just cut that big apartment house in two right there by where I was sitting in that chair. I got up with my butt stuck through that chair trying to run and my pants down. So I quit that crapping out in the yard. But then, I think it was the next night, we took off for Belgium. And I wish to hell they would have resupplied us, or at least halfway made an attempt to put some rations and some gasoline in. The poor old Jeep didn't have any antifreeze in the radiator, and the boys in the line didn't have any antifreeze in their heavy machine guns. We didn't have any extra ammunition. We just had a very small amount of blood plasma. And anyway, we started to the bulge, and we got down there, and we just drove around looking for them damn Krauts, and they done the same thing looking for us. And finally, we was coming up, got out of Marche a little ways, and we found a German that was directing traffic. And something just wasn't right about him, even though he's an MP. And the way we began to figure it out, we could smell disinfectant on him. But we didn't use disinfectant in the Army. We all smelled like a walking crapper because we just needed a bath so bad and dirty. And with a few questions, I found out he's German, dressed as American. Well, hell, they just shot him on the spot. Then we knew that they was damn close and infiltrating us. And then you have to figure out a way to sort them out so you don't ask them what the password is, because they knew what the hell the password was. You ask them about ball players and no more than I knew about sports. I was afraid he's going to ask me something about like that and get shot. But they'd ask you just questions that you're supposed to know something about. And then we took off up that one road to Bordeaux. And when we got right up almost to town, they opened up on us with a machine gun, and I just bailed out, jumped into the ditch, full of snow, and there's about 3 foot of water in there, and by God, now that'll really take your breath. And I just jumped out of there. I said, hell, I'll just stand up and shoot me now, get it over with. But took care of him. And then we run into some men out of one of the other regiments, and they didn't tell us the truth. They said, there's 100 Germans up there in a little town called Verdun. And I told my buddy, I said, my God, 100 Germans run a company of 334th out? That's nothing. That can't be true. And anyway, they started us back up this road, and they took the wrong damn fort and run right into the lead tanks in the 116th German Panzer. God, what a hell of a predicament to be in. Well, the only thing that saved us, the Germans had young men running the tanks. And nothing like experience. Anyway, we got them screwed up, and they got to fussing amongst themselves, and they knocked 14 of their own damn tanks out. But that was really a blessing, because we just fell into it like that all the time. But anyway, for about two days or so up there, it was just them and us, and then us and them, and just fussing and going on, and you couldn't get any airplanes in. The weather was terrible. And finally, over at Manelli, which is close to this little town, they really put the hammer on them over there. They got about 15 of their tanks. And that was the end of them. That was really the first defeat that German outfit had ever run into. And it was really the beginning of the end. That one day, I believe it was Christmas Day. I'm not sure. Christmas Day, I believe it was, the Allies, not just our outfit, but the Allies killed 2,500 Germans that day. And, you know, that's a hell of a lot of people. And I don't know how many tanks. I believe it was 190 tanks they knocked out. People at Bastogne didn't have nothing to worry about. They wasn't going any place. The Germans had a few men surround them. They didn't have to stay there and fight. And this is what I think you get into when you run into a glory outfit, and you have somebody that's really wanting to publicize what an outfit's done. And no doubt they caught hell. And by God, the rest of us was catching the same thing. And it got so cold On the 6th day, I had never been to sleep yet. It was after Christmas, and I was just so tired. It must have been about the 27th or 28th. I just couldn't go no further, and I had to run my Jeep every 15 or 20 minutes. It was about 15 to 18 below zero to keep the engine from freezing. And I had the last blood plasma in the whole battalion under the hood on my Jeep. I had made a little metal pan out of some old roofing put in there. And by God, I just fell out on the ground, and I must have slept an hour or so. And when I awakened, my Jeep was froze, my blood plasma was froze, and I was goddamn near froze because I just had on a field jacket and long underwear, but we didn't have enough long underwear on, and my dad had sent me a pair of sheepskin mittens, and that's the only thing that saved my hands, and had an old towel wrapped around my head, and no overshoes. Just, by God, we was just barely hanging on. And I wasn't the only one. The whole damn outfit the same way, and I've seen men just collapse and lay down on the ground and go to sleep, and they'd sleep an hour or so, and when they awakened, they couldn't get up. They would be frozen to the ground. Then you'd have to get pulling and tugging and try to get a guy loose from the ground. God, what a hell way to make $1. And this went on clear up to about the 15th or 17th of January, chasing them damn Krauts. And there was a town called Hoofalies, and that's where the 2nd Armored, which finally came in with us, and we supported them, met some of Patton's outfit in this town called Hoofalies, and they considered the bulge closed. Well, not that I was a glory seeker or anything, but we was fairly close to Hoofalies, and we got word from some civilians that the Germans were still in there, but there was many, many wounded civilians. And this one Red Cross worker said, I'll take you in. And I made about 3 or 4 trips out of there. And of course, my old Jeep didn't have any muffler on it. And I got the goddamn Krauts began to look for me. And finally, they got me zeroed in. And the only way I could get out was to go towards them to the main road. And I had to go through a garden, and then through the garden fence, down in the embankment, which was about 25 feet tall, and just land out in the road. And this is a hell of a chore to do with a bunch of civilians that's just been shot full of holes 4 or 5 weeks ago, and they're really, really touchy. Some of those civilians had gangrene and everything else, but we hauled them out of there. And along about this time, or maybe just a little before this time, was when they called me and Stephen Frankowiak out of Reading, Pennsylvania. They showed us on the map where this 4 kids were at. And they said when we got in this area, a tank would meet us and give us escort or cover. So as we was going down this road, I got right in the middle of it, and I said, Frank, God damn it, we're in trouble. He said, like what? I said, we're in a minefield. And there was a differential out of a 2.5-ton truck hanging in a tree, but the snow had never been bothered, you know. So we went on through, luckily, and I got over there, and I run into this tank, and the tank commander told me where this farmhouse was at, and it wasn't about quarter or third of a mile on down the road, down in the woods like, and I pulled in there and the damn krauts every place. They never fired a shot. I went in there and I got the kids, left one because he was dead, and I was going to leave the other one. And Frank said, well, why? And I said, well, the ride will kill him. Had the top of his head gone. He said, well, they'll die anyway, so what the hell, let's just take a chance. So we took the dad and the little boy and the two little girls and brought them out. And when I got back to that minefield, the engineers had got there by then and they wouldn't let me go through. So I had to go down through the woods to quite some distance, and I found where the creek bank wasn't too high. And I carried those kids across the creek, and then I broad jumped that creek with that old Jeep, got them all back in there and got them back to the aid station. And they turned me in for, being Frank in, for a Bronze Star. Well, that's a little beyond the Call of Duty, I guess. It went behind the enemy lines to pick up some wounded. But that was just everyday doings, and it was just, you just done something like that not every day, but just all the time. You didn't necessarily monkey with children or anything, but you were just on the go constantly. And down in that same area there, I went after a guy from K Company, and I can't recall his name now, but we pulled into this little area, and he had been hit right below the knee with a piece of shrapnel, and it come out right about his ankle, and it just about, well, he lost his leg. And we got him drugged back into an old bedroom, got him on a stretcher. By God, couldn't get him through the door. The house was so small, the door was so small, and if we'd got him through the door, we couldn't get him through the hall. Just wouldn't turn. And I said, well, I'll just go get the axe off the Jeep and we'll beat this window out. And there was a window about 4 feet up, not a very big window, and I just beat the side out of the house. We took him out through there, and the guy that was helping me, I went by myself up there. The guy that was helping me load this guy. In order to load my Jeep, I had to go to the rear and come across the back seat and the steering wheel to get him up on the hood, because I had a wire cutter over the front end. And I'll be damned, just as we set him down on this frame over the hood, I heard this big 120 mortar coming. And I just hugged the side of that old Jeep, and hell of an explosion. I mean, just within inches of us. And I hollered at that guy. I said, you all right? And I could hear something just kind of thrashing around. Run around the Jeep, and I could see his head was cut off. He was kicking around a little bit on the ground. And I drug him out from underneath the Jeep. And I got his head laying up there in the front seat. I threw the damn thing out of there. And boy, you talk about hauling it out of there. I got the hell out of there. That damn mortar, that's what got this other guy. But that 120 mortar just had K Company really zeroed in. You just get into kind of a mess like that all the time. Never thought much about it. And after we got back from down there in the Bulls, when we come back almost the same place we was at before we left, up on the Roar River, and we prepared to cross the Roar, and we crossed the Roar, and after we crossed the Roar, then we got shaped up. We formed a task force. Well, a day or so before we formed the task force, I was in a little town, and I keep thinking it was Ball, but I don't believe it was. Down along the river, and that's the first time in my life I ever seen bullets that was spent bullets that was knee deep. actually almost 2 foot deep bullets laying along a retaining wall. My God, I couldn't believe that. 50s and 30s. Hell, you could have scooped them up just like you scooping gravel. But we crawled out. We got the task force started, and the task force really hauled it up to the Rhine, but it was just like punching a hole in Jell-O. That left the rest of us. We still had a lot of troops to contend with, and we was beginning to really get into a lot of problems, hard fighting, and we got into a town called Hart, and they just really riddled us there. My God, that's where I got the back shot out of my coat. That just made a bib out of that damn coat. Goddamn ruined my shirt. If I'd had anything to eat, I think it'd have ruined my pants too. This scared me goddamn near to death. Seen a guy, a German, had his jaw shot off there. There was a SS detachment in there, and by God, they wasn't giving no ground. Well, we wasn't trying to. But we finally got out of there and got into the Rhine, and then when we crossed the Rhine, God, that was something. We went from our holding area at Rheinhausen. It's not too far from Crayfield. We drove down to Wessel, I believe it was. And they built that bridge in 28 hours across there. And when we got close to that bridge, they said, turn your lights on. Because he said, you start across that bridge, by God, crowded. And I'd say that's weird going across that Rhine is really swift. That old bridge just a jumping and a going on, boy, and just a pouring the coal on. And when we got over there, we drove right through where the 17th Airborne had landed that morning. And there was lots and lots of gliders. That's what I meant, glider infantry. There's a lot of gliders that was 3 deep, one on top of the other, and dead bodies in all 3. It's just damn hard to maneuver a glider in pitch dark. But after we got over there and got established, they told us, he said, supply yourself up for 10 days. Because they said as soon as they can punch a hole in the German lines, we're going through it. And we've got 3 objectives: Munster, Hanover, and Berlin. And we took off. I've just filled that old 3/4 Dodge plumb full of gasoline, every place I could get a can. And I had stole about 10 cases of rations. And I'll be damned if they didn't send somebody down there, went through everything and took most of my rations away from me. Boy, we was going to live high. But when we started, we'd chase them, and that's all we was doing, was just catch them as they was trying to retreat, and there wasn't enough of them left that they just couldn't regroup. Just absolutely couldn't regroup. So we just getting into small pockets. And we got into one small pocket. They caught us by surprise. And they captured an M8. Didn't shoot the crew, just made them get out. Then they brought that damn M8, that's an armored car, brought that down there in our area, and they was just raising hell with us. Just couldn't figure it out. We finally got it. It killed 2 or 3 guys, so. Then we got into another little town called Weinhausen, I believe the name of that. the bridge, here come a guy with a white flag on a bicycle. So we was walking, even though we was behind the lines. And this old boy from Tennessee, he was really good with the VAR. He's keeping an eye on this Kraut, and that Kraut got fairly close to us, and he just dropped that white flag, and he picked up a machine pistol, and before he could fire it, that damn Tennessean had just cut him in two with that old bar. Well, about that time, the bridge went. And we started in that little town. We had to ford the creek, about a river. It wasn't a river, just a big-sized creek. And we just piled in and waded across that and started up through that town. And my God, just out of no place, every damn building in there had a half-track with some kind of weapon in it. Here they come after us. They've just really shooting up the town. So we just pulled back out of town, and number 1 and number 2 guide. I believe it's an elk company. Got hit. Oh, Christ. And we pulled back out and took mortars, and we burnt the damn town to the ground with white phosphorus. And then it come time to send the medics in. So me and Berlin Short and a fellow named Dick Tracy, we went up clear to the other end of town, and we found these guys. I remember Chet was coming back out, walking down the street. His German machine gunner right there in the side ditch, and we just walked right past him. He never said a word. And just as we got across the road and down by that bridge, with that wounded, those 2 wounded, we was carrying them both on one stretcher. There was another medic ran across the road, and that goddamn Kraut killed him. The machine gun. And he went up there and shot that son of a bitch. Eliminated that. And I got old Short the next day, was cutting his finger off to get his ring, and the doctor, he just got all upset. So Short just had to leave that. But then we went on, we got into Munster. Then we got into Hanover. And I'll tell you, you ain't going to believe this, what I'm going to tell you. We put our aid station in the western edge of Hanover. And it was in a fenced-in area, probably about 3/4 of an acre schoolhouse, and it had a high fence all the way around it. And out in front was parked a 2.5-ton truck, and it had a machine gun, a 50 machine gun mounted on it. But anyway, we had one of the boys with us that he came back from the hospital. He'd had his cheek shot off, and they glued it back on, and of course he, by God, was really goosey. And an old ambulance driver, he's 44 years old and had 8 kids. He was in another outfit, but he was with us. Of course, we was all there, and all at once, here come a damn Stuka, straight down right at our aid station. And this Jew, the guy that had his cheek shot off, he started screaming and carrying on. Well, when he done that, the rest of us couldn't even move, you know. It's just something that we just didn't do that. My God, that guy sitting out there in that truck took a lead on that damn bomb with that old 50, and he just put a string of bullets right in front of it, and the damn bomb run into it, and he detonated the bomb. I never seen such shooting in my life. God, that's an airburst, you know, a hell of a big bomb. God, it just shook the hell out of everything. And a piece of shrapnel cut this old ambulance driver's visor off his steel helmet like to broke his damn neck when that hit him. And that's the only casualty we had. But I tell you, you just couldn't believe that they would do that. And we went on into Hanover, was burnt to the ground anyway. There was no fighting in Hanover at all. We went on through Hanover. And all we had to do is figure out some means of giving all the land that we had acquired back. I think every foot of the soil that we took in the war either went to the British or to the Russians. So in a few days we started back, and we finally worked our way back to Weinhausen, down by Heidelberg, and there we spent really the summer. And I even taught school down there, taught some automotive maintenance. That's the first time we'd heard of anything like that. The Army actually was starting their own training program, and then when we got home, they had a schooling thing for old soldiers. If you could meet the specifications, I just couldn't do it. But we just stayed around there and stayed drunk all summer long. I think the first drunk I was on was right after the war was over. It was 10 or 12 days, and then we sobered up and drove a truck from Heilbronn, Germany, to Linz, Austria. And then on that trip, we went through Dachau and some other places we seen. And we got back, there was nothing to do, and there was just boredom like you wouldn't believe. So I stayed drunk till October. And then I got transferred to the 12th Armored Division. And worked my way out of that. Got to be a doctor again. I was a first aid man. I got and came on home. Came back on a ship, just like I said, F deck A compartment, right back on, only I came back on an Italian ship. And the ship that we came back on was, would make 19 knots. And we pulled out of Le Havre, out into the Mediterranean, and then when we hit the Atlantic, it took us 9 days to cross it. And the old captain said, I want to go to the Army-Navy football game Saturday. Well, we didn't make it. My God, I don't believe I've been on any rougher sea than that, what we were running on there. That was just really terrific. Well, looks like Cynthia's come home. And I transferred back into Camp Kilmer, and then on a train over to Atterbury, and I was discharged the 6th day of December, 1945. And that's it.